"Keep dancing, boy! Show us your little clown shoes!" The words sliced through the air, sharp enough to cut. Malik's heel hit the pavement in rhythm, but the voices around him were louder. A circle of strangers had formed, not to cheer, but to jeer. Their laughter wasn't light. It was cruel, designed to sting. He tried to drown them out, to let the rhythm carry him, but every insult was a hammer against his chest. One man barked, "What is this, the 1920s? Nobody cares about tap dancing anymore." Another chimed in, "Maybe he thinks he's auditioning for pennies, like some street performer who doesn't know when to quit." The sting of their words burned deeper because Malik wasn't there for money. He was there because the street was his stage, the only place he could release the rhythm locked inside him. Still, the crowd didn't see a performer. They saw a target. His legs wanted to stop, to retreat. But his pride whispered, "Keep going." He tapped harder, each stomp echoing louder than his doubts, but the voices refused to fade. Someone shouted again, "Dance for us, boy!" The laughter erupted once more, cruel and thunderous. Malik clenched, his jaw refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing him crumble. Yet inside, his heart was a storm he struggled to contain, and that storm only grew stronger. The steady rhythm of his taps tried to rise, but it was swallowed whole by the chorus of mockery. Phones were raised high, capturing every second, not as art, but as entertainment to be ridiculed online. "Look at him. Thinks he's famous already," a voice sneered. The others laughed, louder than the sound of his shoes striking pavement. The music he built with his body was erased by cruelty. Malik's chest tightened. He wanted the sound of his tapping to drown out their words, to remind him why he danced. But their voices crawled into his head, pulling at his focus. A group of teens in the back chanted, "Outdated, outdated." Each syllable landed heavier than the last, turning his passion into a joke. The rhythm faltered. A slight misstep, a slip in timing. The laughter grew instantly, feeding off his stumble. He bit down on his lip and forced his feet back into rhythm, desperate to hold the music together. But the humiliation didn't stop. It multiplied. The dance he loved wasn't being seen. All they saw was someone to laugh at. And among the mocking faces, one figure stepped forward. From the middle of the crowd, a boy with a smug grin pushed ahead. He was no stranger. Malik had seen him online. A teen influencer, the kind who thrived. Off mocking others for clout. "Well, look who we have here," the boy called out, phone angled to catch every second. The next big star? In his own head. Laughter exploded again, the crowd egged on by his confidence. He walked circles around Malik like a predator sizing up prey. "Show us those rusty moves. Maybe if you're lucky, I'll post this. You'll finally go viral for being pathetic." His words dripped with arrogance, each one a knife aimed at Malik's spirit. Malik's taps quickened, trying to block him out. But the influencer leaned closer, mocking every stomp, every shuffle. "Listen, he really thinks this belongs on the street. Newsflash. It doesn't. Nobody wants to see a tap dancer in 2025, especially not you." Gasps scattered through the crowd, but no one stopped him. Malik's rhythm wavered, the hostility tightening around his chest. The spotlight he dreamed of had arrived, but in the cruelest form imaginable. And yet, his feet refused to quit. Sweat poured down Malik's face, stinging his eyes as he forced his steps to stay sharp. Each stomp echoed his refusal to bow to them, though his body shook with exhaustion and shame. He whispered under his breath, "Keep going. Just keep going." The crowd was a blur of faces, some recording, others sneering, a few glancing away. In discomfort. No one clapped, no one encouraged me. Their silence, laced with ridicule, was worse than boos. Malik's rhythm grew heavier. His heart pounded so loudly he could hear it over the taps. His breath came in ragged gasps, but still, He moved. Every shuffle, every stomp became a battle. His mind screamed at him to stop, to spare himself the humiliation, but his pride anchored him to the ground. He wanted them to see more than a joke. He wanted them to see the fire that had carried him this far. But the harder he tried, the louder their cruelty seemed to echo inside him. His tapping shoes struck the pavement again and again, desperate to prove that his voice could not be muted, and yet his body trembled on the edge of collapse. His chest heaved, throat burning as he fought back the tears that threatened to spill. His eyes stung, not from sweat this time, but from humiliation he refused to let them see. They wanted him to break. They wanted him to crumble so they could capture the moment, upload it, and laugh at it forever. But Malik wouldn't give them that victory. He lifted his chin, forcing his legs to keep moving, each tap a declaration. I am still here. His rhythm no longer flowed smoothly. It shook with pain, but it was defiance. Every stomp said what his voice could not. The crowd's laughter blurred into background noise, but inside, Malik's resolve sharpened. They could laugh, record, or insult, but they could not erase his rhythm, and he wasn't done yet. Again! Play it again! Little Malik clapped his hands toward the dusty old TV as an unfamiliar sound filled the living room. Sharp taps, quick rhythms, a man's feet speaking without words. The applause from the grainy program carried through the speakers, and for Malik it was like magic. He didn't see costumes or a stage. He saw possibilities. His mother smiled faintly, folding laundry. You really like that, huh? Malik's wide eyes never left the screen. I want to do that. I want my feet to sound like his. The room fell silent when the program ended, but the echo of those taps never left him. Even as the TV went dark, the rhythm lived inside his chest, demanding to grow louder. That rhythm grew in a home where every penny stretched further than it should. Malik's father worked double shifts at the plant, grease under his nails, while his mother juggled part-time jobs just to keep the lights on. Dreams weren't luxuries in that house. They were extra mouths to feed. Still, when Malik drummed, his feet on the floor, his father would sigh but never stop him. Boy, if you're gonna make noise, at least make it worth hearing. Malik took that as permission, even if no money was set aside for lessons. He didn't resent it. He understood. Early, survival came first. But inside, he carried a quiet resolve. If nobody could fund his dream, he would build it from nothing. So he did. Every crack in the sidewalk became a note, every street corner his makeshift stage. The soles of his shoes wore thin long before their time, but Malik refused to stop. Neighbors would glance at him pounding the pavement, curiosity mixing with annoyance. Some kids laughed, calling him Tap Boy. But Malik learned to keep moving, feet snapping against the concrete like a drum line. When asked why he kept at it, he'd shrug. Because I hear it. I hear the beat even when it's quiet. Those sidewalks taught him timing, resilience, and how to make music from nothing. No polished floor, no spotlights, just rhythm echoing into the air, daring anyone to ignore it. Each shuffle was practice. Each stomp was proof he was still chasing. That sound from the TV, but dreams don't grow easily in soil hardened by doubt. In Malik's neighborhood, people measured success in survival, not stages. You think dancing's gonna pay rent? An older man once scoffed as Malik practiced near the corner store. Better learn a trade, son. Even kids his age joined in, mocking him. What are you gonna be, the tap-dancing mechanic? Laughter trailed behind their words. Adults weren't cruel, just dismissive. They'd shake their heads and walk away, convinced his effort was wasted. For Malik, every dismissal cut deeper than teasing. They weren't laughing at his skill. They were laughing at his belief in a future they couldn't see. Still, he kept his rhythm alive, even when the world refused to listen. He danced anyway, not for their approval, but for himself. Each tap became defiance. every shuffle a heartbeat louder than disbelief. When silence filled the house late at night, Malik's feet whispered against the floor, steady, unbroken. His mother would sometimes pause at his door, tempted to tell him to sleep, but she let him continue. She saw the fire in him. He told himself, "One day, they'll hear it. One day, they'll know why I never stopped." And though the world around him tried to drown his rhythm in noise and doubt, Malik's determination carved through the silence, an unshakable pulse that no one could erase. "Hey, you can't be out here!" The bark cut through Malik's rhythm. He stopped mid-step, looking toward the store entrance where the owner stood, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "I'm not hurting anybody," Malik replied quietly, sweat still dripping, as his feet twitched, hungry to keep moving. The man shook his head. "You're scaring off paying customers. Nobody wants to shop with noise like that outside." Malik's chest tightened. Noise? He wanted to say it wasn't noise. It was art. But the owner's stare burned through him, dismissing him before he could explain. "I'll move in a second," Malik muttered, trying to hold on to his composure. The man smirked. "Do it now, boy. This sidewalk ain't your stage." Malik's jaw clenched, his pride pressing against the weight of being silenced in the very place he had carved out as his stage. As Malik shuffled further down the block, voices trailed behind him. A group of passers-by leaned on a railing, snickering. "Look at him. Who even tap dances anymore?" one said, nudging his friend. "Old-fashioned stuff. That's not for people like him," another added, loud enough for Malik to hear. Their laughter rang sharper than the taps beneath his shoes. Malik forced himself to keep his rhythm alive, but every chuckle sliced into his confidence. One woman shook her head as if watching a sideshow. "He thinks he's on Broadway. Out here, he's just in the way." Malik kept moving, refusing to glance up. Still, the words clung to him, heavy as chains. Tap was supposed to be his freedom, but in their mouths it became a punchline, a reminder of how racism and ignorance reduce dreams into stereotypes. That's when a new voice cut in, smooth, mocking, and far too loud. "Yo, this is gold. My followers are gonna eat this up." A teen in designer sneakers raised his phone, recording. Every move Malik made. His friends circled behind him, egging him on. "Make him dance harder," one laughed. "Say the line," the ringleader grinned. "Hey, tap boy, do that shuffle again. Show us the circus trick." Malik's stomach twisted. He tried to drown them out with rhythm, but their voices pressed closer, the phone lens glaring at him like a spotlight he hadn't chosen. "This is content, bro," the influencer chuckled, narrating to his camera. "Kid out here thinks he's Sammy Davis Jr., but really, he's just blocking traffic." The group roared, their laughter bouncing off the street. Malik's feet faltered for the first time. The taps that once filled him with life now felt like bait in someone else's cruel performance, replayed for strangers he'd never meet. Malik's rhythm stumbled, each movement dragging under the weight of humiliation. His shoes scraped instead of snapped. The insults wrapped tighter around him, stealing air from his chest. "Come on, tap boy! Don't stop now!" Someone jeered. He forced his body forward, jaw locked, trying to prove he wouldn't break, but every word chipped away at the fire that once burned inside. His heartbeat no longer matched the rhythm. It fought against it, uneven and heavy. Malik whispered to himself, "Just keep going." But even his own voice sounded uncertain. Where once he danced freely, now he moved in slow motion, carrying ridicule on his shoulders. Each step was no longer an expression, but survival, a desperate attempt to hold on to the dream slipping through. His grasp. The crowd's laughter faded, but so did his rhythm. Malik slowed until the sound of his taps disappeared into the noise of the street. He felt himself shrinking, invisible among strangers who only saw a joke where he saw purpose. For the first time, the question pierced him. Is this dream foolish as... He stood there, motionless. The beat he once heard so clearly inside his chest grew faint, like a drum silenced before it could ever be played. Everybody, come check this out. The influencer's voice rose above the city noise, dripping with mockery. He waved his phone in the air like a trophy. Look at this dude trying to bring back tap dancing. Vintage comedy right here. Malik's heart lurched. He tried to keep his steps steady, letting the taps echo in sharp bursts, but the words clung to him like chains. The teen grinned wider. Come on, bro, give the people a show. Do something old school. Shuffle for us, Sammy. Or maybe moonwalk. Nah, that's too modern for you. The crowd thickened. Strangers slowed their pace, curiosity pulling them closer. Phones lifted, screens glowing. Malik could feel the camera lenses circling him, turning his art into a circus act. Man, this is gold, the antagonist continued. Who knew the sidewalk had its own history museum? Free entertainment, folks. Laughter cracked through the air. Malik's taps, once his shield, now sounded like desperation. Every rhythm he struck seemed to bounce back as another insult. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but words clogged his throat. His art, the one thing that gave him freedom, had been hijacked, twisted into a joke for someone else's gain. The crowd swelled tighter. A group of teenagers giggled as they filmed, shouting out exaggerated requests. "Charleston!" one mocked. Another held up his phone and announced, "This is going viral tonight." Some adults shook their heads, but not with sympathy. Their smirks mirrored the cruelty of the ringleader. Malik caught fragments of whispers. What's he even doing out here? He should get a real job. He's embarrassing himself. Still, not everyone laughed. A few faces turned stiff, uneasy. One woman murmured, "That's not right." But she didn't step forward. A man shoved his hands in his pockets, glancing away as if ashamed to be standing there, yet unwilling to intervene. The silence of those who saw the wrong but said nothing hurt almost as much as the taunts. Malik scanned the faces, searching for even one voice that would cut through the noise and say, "Enough!" But none came. The influencer leaned in closer, voice booming. "Ladies and gentlemen, clap it up for the human jukebox. He's out here fighting for relevance, one tap at a time." The crowd erupted again, laughter spilling like gasoline over an open flame. Malik tried to retreat into the rhythm, but the noise around him devoured every beat. He clenched his jaw, forcing his feet to move. The taps struck harder, faster, each one carrying a plea. "See me, not the joke." He whispered to himself, "Keep dancing, they can't take this from you." But the louder he stomped, the louder they laughed. His rhythm cracked under their noise, splintering into something frantic. He felt the control slipping, the precision that once brought him peace collapsing into chaos. "Look at him sweating," the antagonist shouted. "Tap harder, man. Maybe the sidewalk will pay you since nobody else will." A roar of laughter followed. Malik's chest heaved. Every muscle screamed at him to walk away, but pride anchored his feet. If he left, they'd win. If he stayed, the ridicule swallowed him whole. One boy tossed a coin at his shoes. "Here's your paycheck, tap boy." The clink against the pavement echoed louder than any beat Malik could muster. He bent, picked it up, and held it in his fist, fingers trembling. "I'm not your joke," he muttered under his breath, though no one could hear him over the jeers. Still, he forced his feet to keep moving, desperate to cling to whatever shred of dignity remained. Through the blur of faces, Malik spotted someone familiar. Darius, his neighbor, the one who had once clapped for him on quiet nights, the one who said, "Keep practicing, man, you're gonna make it someday." Relief flickered for an instant. Maybe Darius would speak up. Maybe he'd remind the crowd. This was art, not a spectacle. But then Malik heard it. Darius laughed, louder than the rest. His voice rang clear as he nudged the influencer, saying, "Yeah, man, he's been doing this for years. Won't quit. Thinks he's gonna be famous." The words landed like a punch to the gut. Betrayal cut deeper than mockery ever could. Malik's chest tightened, breath snagging in his throat. He wanted to shout, "I thought you believed in me." But Darius's laughter had already drowned out the possibility. The sting of betrayal pressed heavier than the weight of the entire crowd. Malik's rhythm faltered, then stopped. His shoes froze against the concrete. The crowd, still buzzing, barely noticed the absence of sound. Phones stayed raised, waiting for the next stumble. Malik's breath came in short, ragged pulls. His eyes burned, his fists clenched around that single coin. The laughter roared on, but inside him, everything went quiet. He stood there, motionless, surrounded yet alone. His heart cracked under the weight of humiliation, his dream bent under betrayal. And for the first time, Malik wondered if silence was all the world would ever allow him. "Don't stop, young blood." The words cut through the laughter like thunder breaking the sky. The crowd hushed, their noise collapsing under the weight of a voice that carried authority, confidence, and recognition. Malik's head jerked toward the sound. Standing at the edge of the circle was a man he'd only seen on posters, music videos, and sold-out concerts. Usher. The superstar stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Malik, not the jeering crowd. "You hear me? Don't let them steal your shine. That rhythm you got? It's yours. Keep going." Gasps rustled through the onlookers, disbelief rippling like electricity. Phones lowered for a moment as people realized who was standing before them. Malik's chest tightened, torn between shame and possibility. His voice cracked when he whispered, "They're not listening." Usher shook his head. "They don't need to. You keep dancing. I see you. That's enough." The words landed like a lifeline. For the first time that night, Malik felt something pierce through the humiliation. Hope. The crowd drew back as Usher stepped closer, his presence shifting the air. He clapped once, sharp and steady, falling into Malik's fractured rhythm. "Come on," Usher urged, keeping time with his hands. "I got you." Malik's shoes hesitated, then tapped, faint at first, then firmer as the beat aligned with Usher's claps. Gasps rippled outward when Usher began to move his own feet, matching Malik's steps with surprising precision. He wasn't just watching. He was joining. "Wait, is this real?" Someone muttered in disbelief. Another voice shouted, "Yo, that's Usher. He's really dancing with him." Phones shot back up, but the energy was different now. No longer aimed at humiliation, the screens were raised to capture a moment of history. Malik's heartbeat steadied. For the first time that evening, the crowd wasn't suffocating. It was breathing with him. The rhythm grew louder, stronger. Usher spun lightly, then leaned toward Malik with a grin. "They came to laugh," he said under the music, "but now they'll remember." Malik's chest swelled, his taps finding new sharpness. For the first time that night, he wasn't just defending himself, he was creating magic. The transformation was undeniable. Just minutes earlier, Malik had been the punchline, but now the street buzzed with awe. Cheers erupted as his shoes struck the pavement with renewed fire, every beat bouncing against Usher's rhythm like a conversation only they could speak. "Go." "Malik!" someone shouted, their tone no longer cruel but charged with excitement. The influencer's smirks dissolved into silence as the wave of energy overtook him. The very same people who had mocked were now chanting, clapping, and capturing the moment as though they'd stumbled upon a concert in the middle of the street. The duet grew, two artists bridging generations with rhythm, Malik's raw hunger, colliding with Usher's polished brilliance. Phones recorded not ridicule, but history, and Malik felt it, his humiliation burning away, replaced by a fire that spread through his chest. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was seen. "Don't get fooled," the influencer shouted, waving his phone wildly. "He's still just some street dancer. Y'all are acting like this changes anything." But his words rang hollow. The crowd barely glanced at him, their cheers drowning out his desperate pleas. For the first time, he wasn't in control of the narrative. "Look at him." Someone. laughed, but this time the laughter wasn't cruel. It was aimed at the influencer himself. "He's pressed because nobody cares about his video anymore." The influencer's face reddened. He tried again, louder, but the chants of Malik swallowed him whole. His mockery had no power in the presence of real art, real respect. Malik's taps hit harder, sharper, like sparks igniting on the pavement. His chest lifted, his shoulders squared. For the first time all night, he wasn't shrinking. He was towering. He shouted through the rhythm, "This is who I am!" The crowd erupted, voices thundering his name in unison. Phones flashed, faces beamed, and Malik realized he no longer stood as a victim of ridicule, but as a performer commanding his stage. The humiliation, the betrayal, the pain, all of it fed his strength. He was no longer invisible, and in that moment, Malik knew his story had only just begun. "Bro, you're everywhere!" Malik's cousin shouted over the phone, disbelief in his voice. Overnight, the clip of Malik and Usher's street performance had exploded online. What began as an attempt to humiliate him was now reframed as a viral moment of resilience and black excellence. Comment sections lit up with praise. "This is art. This is strength. This is history." Malik scrolled through messages, his hands trembling. People weren't mocking anymore. They were celebrating. News outlets called it the performance that silenced hate. For the first time, the world wasn't laughing at him. It was listening. Meanwhile, the influencer who once thrived on humiliation was unraveling. His video, intended to degrade, now served as evidence of his cruelty. "Cancel this clown," one user wrote. Others piled on, racist and jealous. He tried to tear a man down and failed. The same platforms that once rewarded him now condemned him. His follower count plummeted, sponsors pulled away, and memes mocked his desperation. He had wanted the spotlight, but now the spotlight burned him. For Malik, it was poetic justice. The mocker had become the mocked. While his antagonist faded, Malik's world expanded. Invitations poured in. Community centers, theaters, even television networks asking him to perform. Local leaders reached out, calling his story a beacon of hope for young black talent often overlooked. At a neighborhood cafe, elders clasped his hand, telling him, "You made us proud, son." Kids followed him in the street, tapping their sneakers against the ground, imitating his rhythm. Malik's once isolated passion had become a movement. What once drew ridicule now sparked admiration, respect, and solidarity. Amid the whirlwind, Usher stayed close. "You got something rare," he told Malik during a quiet conversation. "Don't let anyone silence it. I'll help you grow it." Usher introduced him to choreographers, producers, and spaces Malik had only dreamed of entering. But more than opportunities, Usher gave him belief, the validation that his art was not only worthy, but necessary. Malik realized he wasn't walking this path alone anymore. He had a guide who understood the weight and the gift of visibility. Standing before a packed hall weeks later, Malik tapped out a rhythm that echoed like a heartbeat. The cheers rose, but inside, he was calm. He whispered to himself, "My rhythm can't be silenced." The crowd roared louder, but his words weren't for them. They were for the boy who once thought humiliation defined him. They were for every dreamer told they didn't belong. Malik now understood. His worth wasn't tied to mockery or applause. His rhythm was his truth, and no prejudice, no voice of hate could ever strip that away. If you stood in that crowd, watching Malik's humiliation unfold, what choice would you have made? Would you stay silent, laugh along, or stand up against racism when it mattered most? Think about it. Your answer reveals more than you know. Drop your thoughts in the comments, your stories, your struggles, your victories. Together, we build a space where resilience is celebrated and silence is no longer an option against hate. If Malik's journey moved you, don't let it fade. Like, subscribe, and share so voices like his continue echoing worldwide. reminding us all that truth. Rhythm and dignity can never be erased.